Welcome to the Get in the Fight podcast. My name is Nate Whitson, and I'm the founder of Get in the Fight Ministries and our exclusive online fight club for Christian men. Everything we do here is dedicated to helping Christian men become the men that God meant for them to be. So if you're looking for helpful content and conversations that can help you to grow and become the man that God made you to be, then you're in the right place. But before we get started, please do me a huge favor and be sure to subscribe, click the like button, and then leave us a 5-star review. Doing that helps us to reach more men who are looking for content just like this. Also, if you'd like to learn more about our mission and how to get involved or how to join the Fight Club, then head on over to getinthefight.club. That's getinthefight.club and learn more today. But without further ado, it's time to get in the fight. So let's go. Hey guys, welcome to the Get in the Fight podcast. I'm your host, Nate Whitson. Thank you so much for being a part of the show, for listening today. This is, again, we say this a lot, but this is a show for Christian men in particular who want to be better men, better husbands, better fathers, better followers of Jesus Christ, just better men in general. And so we talk about all kinds of things here in this show that deal with one of those 4 priorities of our lives. And how do we get better at that? How do we become the men that God had in mind for us when he made us? We think about that a lot, like this life to the fullest that Jesus talks about and promises to us. And yet we see so many men not feeling like they're anywhere near that. How do we get closer to that? How do we become more of that image that God had for us? And so we talk about all those things and things that pertain with it. And so again, subscribe to the show wherever you listen to it. If you feel like a conversation like today's is worth it, worthy of it, share it with somebody else. That really does a huge benefit to us to get in front of more men who are looking for conversations like this. So subscribe, follow, listen. Thank you for being here, all of that. Today, I'm excited to talk about homeschooling. I've homeschooled, my wife and I have homeschooled our kids. We've graduated one. We started when our oldest was maybe, I'm guessing 6 or so, kindergarten age. We both were public school kids, my wife and I. Jumped into homeschooling. And for me personally, it was at that time a little bit like, we'll see how it goes. I hope my kids don't turn out to be nerds. I hope that they can look people in the eye when they talk to them. I hope they can read and write. What about socialization and all of these other things? I knew nothing of this. And so I went from that to really just being a huge advocate. Rather than kind of being like, this just works for us. I don't want to judge you. Like, it's more like, you need to homeschool your kids. Like, this is the option for you to consider. And again, there's grace in that. And we have lots of friends. Most of our friends do not homeschool their own kids, but I'm an advocate of it. And so as I was on X, I came across Jonathan Prescott, and he and I were talking. We met. We're just sharing some ideas. And I said, hey, would you be willing to come on and kind of share a little bit more about what you do and how you encourage families that homeschool? He's an author of a book called Kids Don't Need School. He's an advocate. There's a picture. If you're watching the video, if you're actually watching, you can see it there. We'll put a show notes there. We'll put a link to that too. Encourage you to grab that. But he's a homeschool leader. He's a dad, an advocate, and I'm super excited to have this conversation with him today to get some wisdom from him. And again, for those of you listening, there's probably 2 sides. Let me just say this one thing quickly. You're either listening and going like, I'm interested, but I don't know anything about it, or I'm nervous about it, kind of like I was 19 years ago, or you're in it and just thinking like, man, I don't want to be alone in this, and how do I get better at playing my role in this homeschool community, this family role that I play? So wherever you're at, I know you're going to get a lot out of this. Jonathan, can't wait to chat with you through this. Thank you for jumping in and joining us today, man.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So excited. There's so much I want to get into, and I want us to be really great with your time and get to as much as we can about this. But let's just kind of start at the beginning. Introduce yourself maybe to the audience that is not familiar with you, like a little bit about your background, maybe tell us about your family, your own homeschooling, Sure. How you got into that, things like that.
Well, I'm Gen X. Just put it that way. John, I retired of 30 years in engineering, electrical engineering. My wife was an engineer in electrical as well. And we came together after I retired, and we wrote the book, Kids Don't Need School. And we took the ideas that we learned in 30 years of engineering, and we broke it down for people. We broke down all the questions that they had as an engineer would. and make it and simplify it and stuff like this. My background, I have not been just an engineer. I was a minister. I was a missionary in the Philippines. I was I owned a coffee shop in Memphis, Tennessee, years ago. I've been a college instructor. I've got a lot of things that I've done in my life. And so we took a lot of things to make this book. And we got interested in homeschooling because our daughter started reading at an incredibly young age. And she started recognizing her first words at 10 months old. And so I know, and so we understood that there is no school for her.
Mm.
And we had to make a decision on what we were going to do. So my wife stopped working and started homeschooling. And then after I retired, we switched. And so I started homeschooling and then she went back to work. And so that was our arrangement, for that. And right now she actually started college. Our daughter started college at 14. And
Wow.
so homeschooling does work. And all the questions about socialization and stuff like this, if anyone follows us on X, we've got about 20,000 followers, just under. And we talk about those things. We go to conferences. This will be a second conference. We have a local conference here on homeschooling. And if you know anything about the Tuttle twins, they did our foreword to our book. Elijah Stanfield, he is a co-creator of Tuttle Twins and a good friend of mine. So he was gracious enough to do that. If you want, give them a follow. So anyway, that's kind of my background and where I come from.
Yeah, that's great. So what was the pivotal moment? And maybe you've already kind of said that, but just to clarify again, like what was the pivotal moment that kind of convinced you and your wife that homeschooling was the right path for your family?
And specifically, it was that our daughter had asynchronous development. In other words, what that means is she was so far advanced in reading. I have videos of her as a toddler reading Huckleberry Finn.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, we had to do something.
Mm-hmm.
And we said, well, we can't do a private tutor and stuff. That's way too expensive, even on, engineer salary. But we decided that we wanted to maintain a close relationship with our daughter in order to do those, in order to do those things.
Yeah, makes sense. And so obviously she was clearly destined from the start to just operate at a different level, a different kind of brain level, brain waves, just getting into college at 14. I mean, that's just even hard to put my head around, thinking about me at 14 and how unlike your daughter I am, and probably most people are. But yeah, so God has clearly like just kind of made the way of like, okay, homeschooling is necessary for you.
Yeah.
Why? Let's talk about the book maybe just in more general terms for other people. Like, why do you say why the title there, and why do you say the kids don't need school? What does that even mean?
Well, it's kind of a clickbait title, okay, but it gets your attention. But it asks the question, okay, if kids don't need school, what do they need? And so we say it in chapter 2. What do children need? And they need their parents. They need to have the parent-child relationship. And one of our mission statement that I post on X is that we are here to improve the parent-child relationship. And that flows into, our legacy, our family legacy, and building legacy for, men are different than women, obviously. But men look on the horizon and look for dangers, and they scan for things, how they can direct their family. And homeschooling is one of those directions that I think men need to get behind, because it assures that the beliefs, the values, and the ethics even of their family is assured when they homeschool.
Yeah.
And so men need to support their wives in this. And that's a big topic right there. But
Hmm.
anyway, that's really the message of that
Yeah.
is parents, I mean, children need their parents. They need to build their parent-child relationship to secure their legacy and assure that their values, even Christian values,
Yep.
are assured in that. So
It's interesting because as I hear you say that, I can't picture anybody that I've talked to or anybody that I would talk to who would say, I'm not for what you just said. I think they would all go like, I want that. I know that's my job. Again, my audience is Christian men. And you're right. Like Christian men are going to say like, it's the most important thing I can pass on to my kids. I think most men would say that. And then there's the pause or the but I can't because of a lot of reasons. Like, what are the more common reasons that you hear people say, well, I agree with you, but what comes after that?
there's two main things that come after that. One is, what about socialization?
Mm-hmm.
And the second one is, I can't afford it. We need two incomes.
Let's talk about both of those then.
Sure.
Yeah, please do. Like, so
Okay.
lead the way there. Like, let's take
Sure.
on socialization first. That was my first question. How do
Right.
you address that issue there?
Well, there's two types of socialization according to psychologists. And there's primary socialization and secondary socialization. And primary socialization is what we get in the family. They go to values, virtues, that type of thing, how to conduct ourselves. Secondary socialization is a socialization to a system. In other words, think about it as you go to work and your work culture says, this is how we do things here. And so when the school system talks about socialization, what they talk about is following the rules of a compliance structure, of obedience. And so that's the socialization they talk about, because in public school, they don't talk about interpersonal relationships. They're supposed to sit in a classroom and listen and do their work and obey and and the bell rings and they go to the next one, and they are conditioned and socialized to that system. That's the socialization we're talking about. Now, some people might say, well, I want them to play sports. I don't want to be in a house all day. Oh yeah, well, of course. There's libraries and museums, and there's homeschool communities right now. This is not the homeschool of the 80s.
Agreed.
So there's two types of socialization. So that's the first part. Understand that we want your children to be socialized to their family, because that gives them their identity. It gives them, and that's very important in the third plane of development, adolescence, on defining their identity of who they are and where they fit in the world.
Hey guys, I wanted to take a quick break from the show to share with you 3 things that I think could help you to become more of the man that God meant for you to be: a better husband, a better father, and a better follower of Jesus Christ. 3 things, totally free, that I think can help you. Number 1 is our podcast. Hit the subscribe button, share them with a friend. That makes a big difference, not only in your life, but in somebody else that you care about as well. And it helps us to reach more men. Number 2, we do a free weekly newsletter that is short, it's concise, it deals with just one key question and then 3 simple action items each week that will help you to get in the fight in a really practical way. You can find that at getinthefight.club/newsletter. And then lastly, you can join our Fight Club community. This is a free private app for Christian men only, where you can talk to guys and get involved with guys' lives from all around the world who are just like you, trying to get in the fight to be better men for Christ. You get things like daily devos, weekly challenges, monthly gatherings, small groups, so much more. It's kind of like a Facebook group, but exclusively for Christian men, and it's totally awesome, and it's totally free. getinthefight.club/join and check it out. Get more today. So subscribe to the YouTube channel, get our newsletter, get involved in our Fight Club. Totally free things to help you to get in the fight and win today. All right, that's it for now. Thanks for listening. Back to the show.
So Any other questions on that?
Yeah, no, I just want to, I want to agree with you and just kind of, again, thinking of conversations that I've had with men who are kind of pushing back against this. And if they could chat with you one-on-one, say, well, yeah,
Mhm.
what about this or what about that? What I would say to some of those guys is like where we live here in mid-Michigan, there is a large homeschool community. There's drama teams, there's sports teams.
Mhm.
The socialization that I think a lot of guys wonder about is like, again, are they going to be able to relate in the real world, quote unquote, with other people and not be, again, I think this picture of the 1980s homeschool kid who was just kind of shy, couldn't look you in the eyes, kind of walked around like with a rope around his waist and couldn't be around humans, right? There's this
Right.
like weirdness that people associate with homeschooling. And what I always say to people is you're only going to be as weird as mom and dad, you know?
Indeed. And I mean, think about public school kids are weird too. And not only
Absolutely.
that, but they can be cruel.
That's right. That's
So, I
right.
mean, what type of socialization environment are you going to put your children in? I mean, whenever you make a mistake in the public school, a social faux pas, they're going to be cruel to them.
Hmm.
Now, if you make a social faux pas in your family, there's people around who love you, okay, and will correct different things. So that's a way better environment for a child. The ability to make mistakes without dire psychological consequences.
Yep. Yeah, that's great. So let's talk about the financial side then. If the
Sure.
two big things are the socialization and then money is a big issue, and it is, I hear it a lot. How do you guys approach that, Jonathan?
Well, it's I kind of stumbled upon something that we promote, and that is homeschoolers need to have a parallel economy. And people worry about, oh, well, I can't I can't give up my second income. And I'm thinking, I don't want you to give up your second income. I want you to develop multiple streams of income to support your family. And so that's entrepreneurship. And entrepreneurship can be part of your homeschool curriculum. My daughter has a business that she started, and we go to farmers markets, and her product is vanilla extract, and we're negotiating to get into the local grocery store. We supply to different bakers in the area, and she developed these relationships herself. And so I start meeting uh, homeschoolers that have these side gigs and things like that. And that's where we need to develop the entrepreneurial spirit. Because again, somebody starts homeschooling and the mom starts her side business, right? And the side business starts to grow. And soon enough, there's a possibility that that side business generates enough money to where dad can quit. And so those are things. But one of the things that we do with our coaching clients about the financial side is we do a cost benefit analysis for them, asking about how they can afford things, because a lot of people, they don't realize what their finances are.
Yep.
And so that we go through and we talk about, even things like, school clothes that they have to buy if public school. We talk about dry cleaning. If the woman works, she's going to have to do a lot of different experiences. I'm sorry, expenses in order to maintain that job,
Yep.
and mileage and stuff like this. So we break it all down for them as an engineer would.
Yeah, exactly. No, it makes a lot of sense. And like I remember years ago teaching through a financial peace university course of Dave Ramsey's, and they had, it was the first time I was introduced to something like this, to go like, let's figure out like actually what you actually do bring home from working outside the home, right? And for many families, certainly not all, you really find out that you're really not bringing home a lot if you're paying for, private education or a lot of these other things that wouldn't be involved if you were homeschooling. That you just, again, unless you go through a cost benefit analysis like you're talking about, you just may think, well, this could never work. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, I guess I didn't realize what I didn't know. And so I love that idea. And I think, again, that's like a cool benefit for any guy listening to this is you can get connected to Jonathan, figure out some of this coaching program, and actually get help to determine, right? Like, he's probably not going to tell you, just go do it right away. He's going to say, let's talk about it. Let's see if it actually could work. And
Right.
maybe it's something you don't know about the benefits or the cost, that maybe it's more doable than you think.
Yes, and the thing is you may not be able to homeschool immediately, but once you develop your plan, maybe next year you can start homeschooling. That's always a possibility. If you want to do it and you value your family and your family's legacy and your family's virtues and values and things, this is something that's an imperative, I believe. And there's a lot of different things that homeschooling benefits American families. That, I mean, I believe that it provides a pathway to even end property taxes, because property tax is basically for education. Most of the property taxes collected is for education. Now, if the public school doesn't have the head count, they can't justify their budgets. And so it provides pressure onto public schools to have to adjust. And I think that the path can be laid to that end. Maybe not in my lifetime, but we want people to own their homes completely and not have to worry about that.
Yeah, that's very fascinating. You were the first that I've heard this argument of the pathway to this, and I've been definitely following and watching and listening closely to that, because I think it's a really fascinating, kind of side benefit of homeschooling, which just kind of makes me think too, like, what are some other like unexpected benefits of homeschooling that you've discovered? Maybe, in terms of family relationships, character development, or anything else, any like unexpected benefits that have surprised you over the years?
Well, one of the biggest ones is the improvement of the parent-child relationship. That's the biggest thing. I mean, let's look at, and if you have a dog, right, and you're never there, what kind of relationship do you have with your dog? I mean, they poop all around the house, and they're not trained and all this other stuff. But if you are there, then, I mean, dogs are pack animals. They want to have that social connection with you. So yes, of course, children are not dogs. They're way more important than that. And your family and their legacy are more important. So the parent-child relationship is the more important than a peer bonding. So you need a bond with your children rather than peer bonding. And no person better to talk about this, it was Dr. Gabor Mate in his book Hold On to Your Kids, and it talk about the importance of the parental bond over the peer bond.
I think it's such a fascinating and great point. And again, like, I have gone in this journey from willing to let my kids be homeschooled to advocate that everybody should. And one of the reasons for that is exactly what you're talking about here. When social issues are going on, like, for example, in public schools right now, previous to at least this new administration, conversations about kids who say they are animals, like furries or whatever. And you have a 10-year-old kid in public school trying to process in their head this complete nonsense. And when mom and dad are removed from being able to help steer and direct those daily conversations that are happening, they're like, this seems disconnected, but the school's putting a bathroom something in there for the cat lady, right? Or whatever it is. Or let's talk about terrorism, right? There's something like that going on, and the kids are at school trying to process this. It isn't adults pouring into the kids as much as it's peer-to-peer, raising each other, guiding each other as best they can from peer-to-peer. So when that light bulb went off for me about how crucial it is that in these development years that our kids are being mostly primarily influenced the way that I want them to be influenced from me, which is my job, my wife's job, it really shifted like the importance of this very thing that you're talking about.
Sure. And another thing that you touched on, some people believe that, oh well, I'm going to send my kid to public school to be a light,
Yeah,
right?
that's a big one.
Okay. And my pushback to that is they don't have the skills yet. They're still novices as far as, and plus, they're in an environment where, especially with teachers, they have to comply in order to get grades, so they're not going to be a light. It's just like, people say, well, I'm going to be a teacher, but I'm going to be a good teacher, or I'm going to go into politics so to change it. No, you're going to be isolated. Okay. You're going to be pushed off to the side, and you're going to be made ineffectual in what you want to do, because the pressure is way too much. That's the same with children. And of course, children, they don't even know who they are yet, as far as their identity and about where they fit in this world.
That's great. Let's talk a little bit about, I just had this conversation maybe last week with a dad, well, he's not even a dad yet. He's pre-marriage, and they're having conversations together about their goals and dreams and how they view education and things like that. But what he's thinking is, God willing, he has kids. He's thinking, in fact, he'd said this directly, like, I want to just look and see if there's any like statistics that back up that when kids leave school, they're better prepared, right? That their academic performance actually is better somehow. Can you speak to any of those statistics or ideas there about how a homeschooler leaves high school education homeschooled versus public?
Right. I don't have them handy, but I'll tell you that all the metrics of the performance of homeschoolers far exceed publicly schooled kids. And in fact, that's even true on social skills. I posted on X a couple of weeks ago a peer-reviewed study talking about social skills, and they say that homeschool kids have better social skills. And there's a website I'm thinking of that has a lot of research on it. I'll put it in the show notes.
There you go.
They compile. He's a homeschool researcher, and he compiles, peer-reviewed documents and stuff like this, for homeschooling. So we'll put it in the show notes.
Perfect. Yeah. I agree with you though. Like overall, what we see is that homeschooling has been around long enough now to actually have some like verifiable data to really be able to say, is this actually educationally and socially a good idea?
Right.
And it absolutely is. The numbers, the data actually backs it up really well.
But remember that homeschooling is not just about academics.
That's right.
Homeschooling is about the structure of the family, and about assuring that the family is the center of civilization and not government. Because the nature of a government school is to promote the government. So everything they learn maybe is, but it potentially is propaganda, right? And if you look at the history of the Prussian model of education, you will clearly see that the public compulsory education system is a Prussian model designed so that people will do what the government tells them to do.
That's right.
Right? They're conditioning them to, sit in a classroom, eat at a certain time, change class at a certain time. And so it's we talk about it in our book about the origins of the public school system. So it's in there.
Yeah. Get the book. Kids Don't Need School. One of the things that I think is big, Jonathan, is, and I remember feeling this way so clearly, and probably still at times feel this way, but I think one of the things I want guys to hear is that they will say, okay, I'm on board. Like, I like all of the big reasons. I'm willing to do whatever it takes financially, but I feel like I'm ill-equipped to be a physics teacher. I'm not an engineer like Jonathan. I'm not smart like that. I'm not a good reader. I'm not like all of these qualifying or disqualifying reasons, right? And that was a big genuine thing of like, how are we going to teach our kids something that we can't even do? You know what I mean? So like what is your response to that?
Well, it's kind of interesting because there's a lot of people who believe that, and it's kind of a learned helplessness because
Yes,
did they not graduate from the same institution that supposedly is a the bastion of excellence? So really, they have gone through that. Now, of course, they may have forgotten a lot of things, and that's understandable. But it doesn't mean that you can't relearn with your children, like algebra or something like that,
that's right.
because children love to have a companion to learn along with them. But there's another thing that I found that was interesting is that children have their own brains. They they can self-learn. In fact, we talk about in the book about at what point does a child go into self-learning, and we outline about agency and about self-determination and about making choices and stuff like this, and the big question of what's in it for me. And we talk about the on the what's in it for me question is, if you're not ready, if you can't answer the question of why do we need to do this to a level that they are satisfied, then you're not ready to teach it. Because the what's in it for me is one of the keys to self-motivation. Why do we need to do this? You don't tell a kid, why do they need to play a video game? They just do.
Hmm.
And they are able to learn very complex rules and backstories and stuff like this. And no one's giving them tests on this.
Hmm.
And one of the things that we talk about also is teaching to mastery, not to a grade. And so we ditch grades. There is no grades. You analyze to see whether they have mastered the material, and you move on. You don't have to complete the 50 other worksheets. In fact, I'm not fond of worksheets, but there is a place for them, obviously. But the thing is recognize in your children when they learn something.
Yep. Yep. And really, man, as you're saying it, it makes me think my pushback as a dad often, especially early, was I was trying to compare homeschooling to the 8 hours of better obey curriculum, right? That government school is. And you really have to get rid of that whole, like,
Yes,
it takes time. It takes time, but you have to get rid of that. Like, I'm comparing it to that. It's apples and oranges, don't you
yes,
think?
yes. Public school wastes an amazing much of time in logistics. I mean, getting people together, shuffling them here and there, whereas homeschooling is lean, efficient, and to the point. Learning starts happening, and it's like our daughter went through all middle school material in 9 months, and that's not unusual. We had a student that needed some help and stuff like this because the school system gave up on him, and he was failing algebra and stuff like this. And my wife, who is actually better in mathematics than I am, she started helping him, and he went through all the material and went from F's to B's in very short period of time. So homeschooling is incredibly efficient. You don't have
Hmm.
to spend 8 hours a day. Children, because of their attention span at young ages, they can't handle that 8 hours a day, but they can learn. And so anyway, I that's a soapbox for me. But yes, efficiency.
No, it's great. And flexibility.
Oh
Like
yes.
this week in our home, my wife has been sick. And guess what? It happens. You know
Hmm.
what they can do though? Like they can do a little bit in the afternoon. There's a lot that kids can do on their own. And we're also not stressed about it because we don't need to do a report. There doesn't have to be a grading scale. There doesn't have to be the same pressures that are unnecessary there in an 8-hour government run program. And again, like for any guy that's considering it, you've got to have conversations with Jonathan. I encourage you to get in touch with him to figure out more and to hear like genuine, true stories, because it really is a mind shift from what you grew up in government school to what homeschooling is. But man, the benefits outweigh it in so many ways. And I just want to say, as we kind of like gear towards the end here, what I love so much about what you're saying and your mission is that this is the way that life was intended to be like best lived, when parents and children were operating at the level of the way that God created it to be. And we're so far from it. What we hear people rail on all the time is the family unit's not the same, and we've lost connection and we've lost touch, but we're then not willing to do whatever it takes to rebuild that connection. And homeschooling is that pathway. And I love that you guys are promoting that so much.
I appreciate that, and we love doing it because this is a multi-generational fight.
What do you mean? Tell me more about that. How so?
Oh, well, we have, if you homeschool your children, more likely they will homeschool their children. And when you have a population of the homeschoolers, and we have like 5 million homeschoolers right now,
And growing.
And growing, we are changing society, because once you establish, the values and virtues that you want to instill, just like, train up a child the way they will go. That's true, right? And not just how they won't depart from it, but their children won't depart from it. And this is legacy building, and every man should understand how important it is for his legacy to be passed on, his values, and of course the wife's family, too, her virtues and values and things, and as a family to pass those on. So this is an intergenerational shift that we're in. This is and even political big guns. Homeschooling is that important, and it's the long game.
Yep, that's right. It just makes me think. We just went through an election at the recording of this just a month or so ago, and we realized, like, if you don't like the system and you're thinking, what can I practically do to fight against the system? Homeschool your kids.
Right.
Homeschool your kids.
If you want to bang your head against the lectern at the school board meeting for 20 years, hey, I'm not going to stop you. But what you can do right now is take your kids out of school, start home, and actually take a little break, get to know them, get to know where they're at, take a few weeks off, and then start your homeschooling program. You don't need a big curriculum, especially if they're young. I mean, with stuff around the house, you can teach your young ones easy.
That's right.
So don't think you have to have this bells and whistles curriculum to start out. And if you have any questions, just come talk to us. Hit me up on DMs or whatever like this. But it's that important.
It's that important. Yeah, I love your mission. And as we do wrap up here, I do want guys to be able to find out a little bit more. Can you talk about where they can find you? What are some of the resources and tools and things that, if they're really kind of wanting to take the next steps or figure out more of like how homeschooling might work for them, or even just to ask questions, what do they do and how do you help?
We have a website, .us, and you can go in there and order the book, or you can sign up for our coaching. We're going to be changing the coaching soon, and maybe have some specials going on. We're working on rolling out our courses and coursework. So that's coming in the next few months. There's a lot of good things, but right now, the best way to get a hold of me is through X, DM me. And the thing is if you want to talk to Adriana, our co-author, you can do that too, or you can talk to both of us. So that's how you can get a hold of us. So there you go.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. And I'll make sure, again, in show notes here for you guys listening, you can scroll down in the show notes click on all of those, get connected, but get the book, check out the website again. And if nothing else, talk to somebody who homeschools. If you're a dad thinking about it, talk to somebody that homeschools and get a real life perspective. Don't just assume that you kind of know. And again, that's why I'm doing this podcast. That's why I've talked about it. We'll continue to talk about it. We want you to get connected to your kids for the things that matter most and will matter in eternity.
Right.
when
so,
we're right.
Yes. And just to be clear, our book is not just like tips and tricks. Okay. We go into the philosophy behind things and motivation and things like that. And we go over about finances. It's really a primer for your homeschooling plan.
Perfect. Yeah, that book, Kids Don't Need School, you can go find it. Go to the website, homeschoollife.us. Get on X if you're on X. Follow at homeschool_LLC. You can look them up, find them there. But man, Jonathan, so much good stuff, man. We appreciate your mission. Appreciate you jumping on here and doing all that you're doing for homeschooling.
Thank you, Nate. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll do it again sometime soon. So yeah, thanks for that. And guys, listen, thanks for following, listening. Again, like I said, if this is a show that really kind of connects with you, there are homeschooling questions like crazy. Guys are wondering, people are wondering, like, is this for me? Share the story, share Jonathan's information. Make sure you subscribe and like the show and follow and stay connected as we continue to fight to be the men that we're meant to be. So thanks for listening to today's show. Go get in the fight. Have a great day. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Hey guys, thanks so much for being here today and listening to the show. Please be sure to head over to the website at getinthefight.club. And before you go, if you haven't already, please subscribe, click the like button, and leave us a positive 5-star review. It makes a huge difference whenever you do. Have a great day. Go get in the fight.